Hello, all of those of you willing to listen to us yet again. This is I Didn't Sign Up for This. Karri, how are you doing?
Hey, Tim. I'm good. How are you?
I'm pretty good.
Good, good.
What's going on today? What are we thinking about?
I want to talk about confidence, mainly self-confidence.
I can't hear the word confidence without thinking of this song from an old Elvis movie. Confidence, a little thing called confidence. I don't know. Look it up.
Oh, I'm going to now. I love Elvis movies.
He's not dead. Like, he's out there. He faked his own death. I think he's about 120 now.
Works at the 7-Eleven outside of Las Vegas.
I heard it was Laughlin, Nevada, but that Las Vegas
Oh.
could be Las Vegas. I don't know. Anyway, but I do, every time I hear the word confidence, I think about this old Elvis film that I can't even remember the name of, and he sings a song about confidence to some kid. Confidence. Anyway.
I love it. Old movies are the best.
So what about self-confidence? Why does that strike your fancy?
Well, I've had some conversations this week about having self-confidence and believing in oneself so that you have to, you have to be able to believe in yourself to move forward in life. And if you don't have confidence, it's interesting because it projects into every arena in which you live. It can affect your personal life, it affects your professional life, and it's interesting because there is a situation that women in business will get into, and I'm sure that men do too, and you can tell me what you think on this, but have you ever heard of imposter syndrome?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
I hear of imposter syndrome pretty much every morning when I get up and look in the mirror. And I
Stop.
go, to some degree, no, really. Honestly, I think imposter syndrome can be a bad thing, but I think it's a little, like one spoonful of imposter syndrome in the whole recipe, not such a bad thing because it kind of keeps you humble. It's
Okay.
when you let it get so completely out of control that you get into trouble. But why do you bring it up?
Because women struggle with that in business. It's interesting because it shows up more than not. Like I just read the book, The Confidence Code by, I think it was Kathy K or Katie K and Claire Shipman. I'm probably ruining that, but it's a really good book, The Confidence Code. I got the title right.
It'd be funny if the authors' names are just like nothing like that. Katie K and Claire Shipman, and it's like
Tom
Katie
Jones
K?
and
It's just like turns out it's two guys who wrote that book. Anyway, go ahead. I'm goofy. Go ahead.
So, what's interesting about this book is it's one of my favorites. So, I listen to books on Audible. That's my preferred method of reading, and because I'm always doing something, and so to have a book on when I'm multitasking is great for me. But this was such a good book that I had to order a hard copy for reference because it really tackles the confidence struggle that women face in society. And if you think about that, as I've been putting together this campaign for my coaching social media, it's all about helping women understand where they belong, right? Like, where do you belong? Where do I belong? Because every desire, every place that we belong is different based on where we believe we should be. And that takes confidence. And it's a constant struggle. I mean, even Dove, the beauty bar, Dove.
Yep,
So
sure.
full campaign on building self-confidence and self-esteem in women. They launched a full campaign a few years ago. We have companies spending millions and millions of dollars to counter the negative perception of oneself that is generated out in the media. And it's even an issue with men. Not too long ago, Hanes did a campaign for men to help boost their confidence. And you can find that on YouTube. It's really interesting. So we have companies that are out there trying to run these campaigns to make us believe in ourselves. And that's great. It's an external source. But truthfully, that comes from within. So if you go back to imposter syndrome, and there are a lot of women in business today who wake up every morning feeling like they're there, but maybe they shouldn't be there. Like they don't deserve to be there for whatever reason. And it impedes our ability to be successful. And ultimately it impedes our ability to be happy. And so this is it's a huge topic, but it's a huge issue. And I watch my nieces who, I mean, we've got a lot of little girls in our family, and I watch them grow up, and I want them to be confident, and I want them to believe in themselves. And I have gone through times in my life where I have been more confident in some things and less confident in others. And it has affected my relationships with people. Um, Number one, I've always been confident with my intellect. Like I've always felt like I could have a good conversation. I can handle a conversation. I'm good with people. I can I can relate to different types of people. So you put me in a room with different types of people and I will be able to build a relationship with most of them. And I've always been confident in that. Where I have struggled with my confidence is in the relationships that I've had, the more like the dating relationships that I've had. And that's shown up with what I was willing to put up with for years, right? Like I took what I could get. And there are women out there and there are people out there who constantly take what they can get in every arena of their life because they don't have the confidence or the trust in themselves to get more out of life than what they're getting.
Okay. So how do they get that confidence in your estimation?
What are the ways that we obtain confidence?
Yeah, so like you wake up, you look in the mirror and you say, "Oh man, I just can't believe." And like I mentioned earlier, I've done this, right? I've done this. Hopefully I do it to a healthy level, and I just kind of chalk it up to, hey, there's at least there's a little bit of humility there. But sometimes I look in the mirror and I go, "Blake, I can't believe that these people like pay me to come and tell them how they ought to run their business or run their marriage or live their life or get in shape or whatever." But yet, if I back up and look at the results people get, then that reinstitutes a modicum of confidence because I say, hey, whatever I'm coming up with and whether I'm qualified to tell them that or not, it's working,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's my mantra for my entire business is like, I don't know the best way to do anything, but I do know a way that works that can be reproduced.
Mm-hmm.
I recently saw a clip from the film Limitless,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a very interesting commentary in that film between the two main characters. I won't belabor the point, but the guy who's like taking the NZT, the special medication that makes him, incredibly intelligent or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
is having a conversation with the Robert De Niro character, and he's accused by a third party of having delusions of grandeur. To which he responds, "No, I've actually got a recipe for grandeur," right? And I love that line because it's so incredibly powerful. But the problem is we're really, really reticent to claim a recipe for grandeur. When in fact, most of us have it with a bunch of different things in their life all the time. We never said we have the best recipe. We never said that we have the absolute best way to do anything because there's no way to even know what that is. But if we can accomplish something and look at the results that we're creating in our own lives or perhaps in the lives of others and say that it's working, then we've got a recipe for grandeur. We've got a way that works, which is far more important than some obscure best way to do anything.
Well, that makes sense. Okay, so let's take a step back for a second because I just want to point out one point. One thing. There is a difference in self-esteem and self-confidence. So self-esteem is your belief in your worth, right? Like you are worthy of something and how worthy you are. And then self-confidence is the trust that you place in yourself to deliver what you truly want to deliver. And so if we take a step back and we look at that, when you look in the mirror and you go, I can't believe these people are paying me to do this, but then you're getting the results. The self-confidence is the trust that gets you from the mirror to the action. And so there are times where we may have those obstacles when it comes to our self-esteem and being worthy of something. And for most people, hopefully that's a fleeting thing. It happens to all people. We all have those moments where we wonder about our worth, whether it's because of a relationship that's gone bad or a promotion that we missed out on, we were overlooked for, a bad grade in school, and anything like that, an argument with a loved one or anything, right? So we're all working to prove that we're worthy and remind ourselves that we're worthy of something. But that confidence, because there are moments that I've had where I'm about to get up in front of a group of people and I'm about to deliver a message or a presentation, and it's funny, about 95% of the time I have no nerves. But that 5%, all of a sudden it'll come out of nowhere and just slap me in the face. And I'll get super nervous before a presentation. And I go into the bathroom. This is something that, this was advice that was given to me by one of the VPs that I worked with years ago. She said before she goes into a presentation, she goes into a bathroom or into a room by herself and she'll say, I'm a superhero, I'm a superhero, I'm a superhero. And even just saying that, just say that. Like it actually causes a physical lift. It causes a lift in your persona, in your emotion, because you're reiterating with your mind that you are a superhero, and it boosts your confidence. It's phenomenal. And so it's definitely something that works really well.
Hopefully she's turning the wireless microphone off before she does that.
I mean, if she's not, it's all right.
That reminds me of a scene from 30 Rock where Jack Donaghy goes into the bathroom. Who's Jackie Boy? Who's Jackie Boy? Who's the winner? You are. And he's just like talking to himself. Oh, gosh, that shows my weakness.
I love it.
That shows my weakness. Nonetheless, before we get into mechanisms to engender confidence in the individual, I would just, something that you said reminded me of something that I have worked with clients for years and years and years now, which is the process of distinguishing confidence from arrogance.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because there are a lot of people out there that present themselves as absolutely, ultimately confident at every turn. And oftentimes these people are showmen. Oftentimes these people they have narcissistic personality disorder.
Yeah, I know.
Subaxis of sociopathy, and they're just crazy, right? When they're not at work making millions and your life miserable, they're home poking cats with forks and stuff. They're crazy.
That's horrible.
There are crazy people out there. I'm telling
aware.
You.
I've dated a lot of them.
Nuts. There you go. There you go. I'm not going to say the name.
Don't.
Joe! No. I'm not going to say the name again. Joe. Anyway, this is going to be the Joe cast. Welcome to the podcast where we make fun of Joe. Anyway, and so over the years, I've come up with a very simple litmus test when you are dealing with someone who seems incredibly confident, which confidence, as you well know, is incredibly attractive. We are hierarchical by nature. That's why we have a president of the United States. That's why there's a pope at the Vatican, because we need a leader. And I would like to think that we don't need leaders, that we are above that, beyond that, but we're not. If you just look at the psychology and you look at human performance behaviors, and just study after study after study will tell you that we're basically a wolf pack, and we need an alpha. We got to have somebody to look up to and somebody to sort of follow and have confidence in. Now, it's easy to have confidence in someone who has confidence in themselves, or certainly more easy, but it's also very dangerous because there are people who are just arrogant. And arrogance to the untrained eye looks a whole lot like confidence.
True.
Here's the test. Observe the confident person in your life and question their paradigms. Push back a little bit. If they insist upon being right, they are arrogant. They're not confident. They're just putting on a show for you. if they can back up and say, you question my paradigm. I don't think it's the way you think it is, Tim. And I say, well, maybe you're right. I don't know. In my personal experience, and my personal experience is vast, it has happened the way I'm describing it to you every single time. And so it might not be ultimately right in universal terms. Maybe God disagrees, but in life itself, this is the way it is. And now you're listening to the voice of someone who's confident, as opposed to someone who says, no, it is that way. I know for a fact, and you must agree that my way is best. Well, now you're talking to an arrogant person who they're afraid that they may be wrong. And that fear manifests itself in aggression, usually.
One of the first rules of leadership is when you get into a position, you immediately look to see who your replacement will be, right? Because you want to continue to move up. Arrogant people don't do that. They actually do the opposite, right? Like they they make sure that there's no competition. And that can get into some psychological analysis, right? Where we say, obviously it's built on insecurity, right? But you have to, I would even venture to say, to add to your point, there has to be, in order to determine which is confidence and which is arrogance, there has to be a presence of empathy and the ability to look for that replacement or collaborate or cultivate the leadership in others or cultivate the success in others. Because a confident person, there is no competition for a confident person. We only compete with ourselves.
It's a great big game of golf.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you have so many golf movies when you talk about metaphorical life stories. There's just golf movie after golf movie after golf movie, because golf is the ultimate game of just competing against the course with yourself, your own capabilities, your own intellect, your own mental toughness, and it's you and yourself and the course. And so that's where the competition lies. Also, just a side note to that, because they kind of tie back together if you think about it, the arrogant person probably struggling with imposter syndrome.
Oh, great point. I didn't think about that.
The arrogant person is so afraid that they are in fact an imposter that they hide their imposter syndrome through arrogance. And the way out of that is just humility. It's just asking good questions. It's, pardon me, I'm sure I don't know, but what about this? As opposed to, hey, it's my way or the highway because I've done this forever and I know exactly how things work.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that second individual is afraid that they just don't know. And they're masking the imposter syndrome through the charade of confidence, which a charade of confidence is also known as arrogance. You're just being arrogant because you're so afraid people are going to realize that you're not the real deal. When in fact, all of us are the real deal. All of us bring the value we bring. It's just that we don't have confidence in our capacity to deliver.
Yeah, I think that goes back to, how do you gain confidence? And that's taking a step back and looking to determine your contribution and what makes you an individual. So that really, I feel like we're basically saying arrogance is the opposite of confidence. That's what we're saying. If you are
ultimately, arrogance is the opposite of confidence. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
Arrogance is what you do to hide your lack of competence. So you're incompetent. You are an imposter in your own field, or certainly you feel that way. And you think the only way to accomplish your particular agenda is to bully your way through by holding an air of artificial confidence. But the truly confident person, they don't care if you disagree. They don't care because they don't have to be right. They know that there's a way to accomplish the task. I might not have the best way. Here's a way that we can try. If my way doesn't make sense, then we try another way or another way. It doesn't matter how we get there as long as we accomplish the goal.
Right.
Whereas the arrogant person, because of their own insecurities, their own lack of confidence, their own imposter syndrome, whatever else, they have to be right. They have to present a solution and be right. And you'll see this manifested in people who have trouble, as you mentioned earlier, you alluded to earlier, you have all of these people who have a lot of trouble letting go of their own little thing, their own little pet project, right? They can't delegate authority because they can't trust anyone else. Because if they trust someone else, you'll either realize that the project I'm working on is very, very difficult, nigh unto can't be done, or very, very easy and should be, should be easy to accomplish. Either way, the arrogant person looks weak and looks bad in their own estimation.
I mean, I even talk about gaining self-confidence in my book, and like I said, I'm a big fan of the book, The Confidence Code, and they actually have written a second book for kids ages 8 to teenage years, and it's The Confidence Code for girls. I think after doing a little bit of research, I think that there's a big opportunity to do that for boys too. I think in society we don't actually, we're so focused on it feels like the fashion industry, the beauty industry, everything is trying to point out what you're missing, what you're lacking. And we've created these personas of women who are constantly in a space where they feel inferior or not enough. And I'll tell you that aging, they always say that men age gracefully and women, I mean, nobody wants a picture of me first thing in the morning, trust me. But it's interesting because it's the aging is so associated with defining beauty, where there are women in society now who are in their 70s who are absolutely beautiful, like Helen Mirren, beautiful woman,
Right.
Absolutely beautiful woman. And it's just interesting to me because you look at that, but on the flip side, we have these little boys who aren't necessarily taught, they're just supposed to tough it up. They're just supposed to, you tough it up. I don't care what you're feeling inside. You don't cry and you tough it up. And I think that there's a big opportunity to cultivate that confidence, because confident boys make stronger, better men. And we're missing that.
Yeah. No, actually, it's interesting because I just saw a meme like the other day, which I really should be working instead of looking at memes. But hey, iFunny's a thing. And so essentially what the meme was it's a 2-frame meme. One showed a picture of a Barbie doll and said, "Isn't it about time we got realistic beauty standards for women in society?" And then the second one showed a guy who's looking at a He-Man Masters of the Universe doll. And it's just like, really? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the implication is that women have these unrealistic beauty standards that are imposed upon them by men and represented in this case by the Barbie doll. But have you seen a He-Man and the Masters of the Universe toy? That dude is like...
He's ripped. He's like Arnold in his prime.
That dude makes like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, kind of look like a pansy. It's just... Yeah, no, it's just absolutely crazy. So the moral of the story, though, is that it might be more prevalent among women. I wouldn't necessarily argue that point. Although you have to concede the notion that the most beautiful women in the world that you're going to see, the most intimidating bodies and faces, are on the covers of women's magazines that men are not reading. Men are not attracted to. Men are not going and picking up, Cosmopolitan or Glamour, or I'm sure there's others out there. I don't even know what they are, right?
Mm-hmm.
Elle.
Mm-hmm. Vogue.
Yeah, the women are the ones that look at those magazines.
Well, and here's the thing. How about Women's Day, which is targeted, the demographic for Women's Day is women in their maybe 30s to 50s. Do you know what's on the cover of every Women's Day magazine? How to lose 80 pounds in 30 days. Crack and ice water. And that's all it is. But seriously, like, there's an expectation. But you know what about muscle and fitness? And I will tell you that in my years on this planet, interacting with people from the age of 20 on, I would venture to say that I knew just as many guys with eating disorders as I did girls.
Oh yeah, it's a thing. It's definitely a thing. It's out there.
So
there is a lot of pressure to look a certain way, be a certain way, perform at a certain level. It plays to the lack of confidence in the individual. It's a constant reminder that even though you're, you lettered in baseball and you graduated with honors and now you're at the university. But man, without that 8-pack ab, you're not good enough, because 6-pack ab used to be good enough. Now we need the 8-pack, right? Need to see those extra 2 little muscles downstairs. And it's a little bit absurd, right?
Yeah.
What 2 muscles are you thinking about? What the hell?
I'm like, where are the other 2 muscles? I don't even know what they look like. We are allowing external resources or external forces to define our confidence, when the truth is it all comes from within and your inner dialogue and the story that you tell yourself, right? Like you always say that, but from a confidence perspective, it also is true. And we have that negative Nancy that sits on our shoulder, and negative Nell or Neil or whatever you want, whatever you want to call the male version of that. Like, we all have that. And it really comes back to not allowing that inner dialogue to continue to tear you down. And so what happens is these external resources trigger that internal conversation, and it hurts us. And so you have to remove the negativity in order to change the dialogue.
Right. And I will tell you that for men, that negative voice is also named Nancy.
Dang that Nancy.
Nancy's bringing down men and women equally, constantly. It's always Nancy.
Oh, Nancy. All right. So how do you believe in yourself? How do you change that around?
You practice.
Yep.
You start with the little things. Okay. I remember I used to know this guy. He was a physical trainer. He's up in Salt Lake, and he would talk to me about how he worked with clientele. And he said, I would take this guy a couple of dumbbells, and he said, what I want you to do today is, and he was like a higher end, there are a lot of, old dudes who will pay $1,000, $1,500 a month to look better and feel better about themselves. He was a high-end personal trainer. That's the short story, right? And he did a lot more than personal training, but it was, he was talking to guys who had a lot of money, only men. He only worked with guys usually in their, late 40s through about 75. And he would buy them a set of dumbbells and take it to their house and put it on the floor of the bedroom and say, I want you to get up first thing in the morning. You're going to walk over, you're going to pick these up. You're going to do 1 curl. And that's it. And then we'll get together next week, but I want you to do that once every day this week. Because what he found was that you might have the odd person who goes over and does 1. Most will go over and say, well, I can do 10. And they'll do 10. And they practice. And they build confidence in themselves. They're a little bit sore. They're a little bit strong. They have done 10. By the end of the week, they're doing 20 or 30. But his requirement for them was 1. It's like, can you do it 1 time? Can you do it 1 time? Because virtually no one he ever worked with would say, no, man, I can't even do it 1 time. And so people would go over and do the 1 tiny little thing and say, hey, well, that's the 1 thing we've got, right? I did the 1 thing. I've got 1 act of self-confidence that I can build on and I can be proud of. And so I think that step 1 is you start with the little things and you congratulate yourself for the little thing. And you just build from there. Yeah. And not just in physical things. You sit down after however many years and you write that 1 article. I always wanted to be a writer. I always wanted to write all these books. I always wanted to. Okay, so sit down, look up 1 subject, write 1 article, 500 words, 300 words, a word, write a word that's meaningful to you, right? And it's just it's the littlest thing. But what happens is nobody writes just a word because it's really hard to form a sentence. And so they'll find themselves writing a sentence, and the sentence will grow into a paragraph, and then there's several pages of really interesting content here that I can continue to develop. And with a little bit of help and a little bit of encouragement, and for better or worse, as I mentioned earlier, we are these pack animals or herd animals or whatever you want to call it, right? We have a hierarchical order and we rely a lot on each other. Other people are your mirror to look at yourself. You look at other people to kind of see how you're doing. And sometimes that's good and sometimes that's bad. Sometimes you're seeing this super encouraging face. Sometimes you're looking in the face of Nancy, right?
Mm-hmm.
But nonetheless, you are using these other people to get a reflection of how you're doing back to yourself.
Oh, yeah, that completely aligns with one of my recommendations, which is to seek out the person that you feel is truly confident and talk to them about it, because you will find that even the most confident people have that negative Nancy in their minds. Like, find the people that are the most confident in your circle and talk to them. Talk to them about their own confidence. And I will tell you that 9 times out of 10, a truly confident person doesn't actually realize that they're projecting that confidence as much as they truly are. And they'll talk to you about their own hurdles. I mean, if you like I said, it goes back to the fact that self-confidence is the trust that you can get where you want to be. So it's the trust that you place in yourself. And that's the difference. I may not be perfect. I may have obstacles and barriers that I have to overcome, but I trust that on any day I can deliver that. I don't even know what they all are yet, but I trust that I will get through it. And that is the true definition of confidence. But we all struggle. Everybody struggles. And I think that because we're only seeing the highlight reels, and we don't see the internal dialogue that other people face, we tend to forget that we're all so similar. I think that some of the most valuable conversations I've had recently have provided insight to me that men think very differently than women, but some of the emotional responses and how they feel about things in their life are very similar. We're not as different as we think we are.
Absolutely not. We're absolutely not. Like, I like to think of it in terms of, men and women might take different paths, but we wind up in the same location.
Right.
We wind up in the same place. And so there is a lack of confidence. There is this imposter syndrome. There is this wondering if you're good enough or worthy or, fit enough or handsome enough or whatever. But there's a lot of the same things that are going on. The only slight difference is that men can't admit it to each other and women can.
Agreed.
Women have permission to have weakness and self-doubt, and men feel like they don't. In actuality, they do. But they feel like they don't. They feel like they have to compete, and it's this bloody battlefield all the time. I think the truly self-actualized, truly confident person doesn't struggle with that nearly as much. But it's out there. It's there all the time. You have people who will look at you and go, why is this guy telling me all his struggles? I don't want to hear this. Because you don't have permission to talk about it as a guy.
It's crazy.
It's just a little bit taboo.
Yeah, that's crazy. There's a lot that needs to change in that. And so, I think we've hit on some really good points. I think ultimately you have to recreate your internal dialogue. Like you said, practice. Practice makes perfect. So practice that confidence. Talk to your confidence mentor. So find a person who's confident and talk to them about their own obstacles and some of the things that they do to get over those opportunities.
For me, it's like the seminal poet George Michael said in the classic song Freedom 90, wherein he says, we've got to take these lies and make them true somehow. And that sounds kind of ridiculous on the surface, but that's largely what we do. We tell ourselves a story, and then we work to live up to the expectations that we create in ourselves around that story. And then we exercise it literally and figuratively to develop a more confident persona. And once you've done that, then you find that people will begin to trust you. You can always tell a good leader in your organization or in your life based on who is following that person. And if it's nobody, if nobody's following, if nobody's, emulating what you are trying to accomplish or what you're doing, then you're not leading.
Yeah, I think ultimately I do have to give a plug for an affirmation or two because I'm a life coach and we love our affirmations, but
oh, it's incredibly important.
It is.
It can't, I say that with complete sincerity. Absolutely. Essentially what you are doing when you use an affirmation is you are programming your brain to look for a certain outcome. So we're these storytelling creatures who are constantly explaining the world that we see around ourselves to ourselves through the means of story. And as we tell ourselves a story about what's going on, if we are careful to make ourselves the hero of our own story, then we become the hero of our own story. If we make ourselves the victim, we become the victim. It's absolutely unavoidable. And it's not frou-frou, right? It's not like some people take something like affirmations and the notion of speaking something into existence, and they try to make it very ethereal. And it's not. It's real simple stuff. You are programming your computer that lives within the 6 inches of your skull. And you're telling it, here's the outcome we're looking for. And so here are all the related things that we need to be aware of, the conversations that we need to understand or overhear. Here are the people we need to run into. And this remarkably perceptive machine that is the human body will look for what you've told the brain you need to find.
Right.
And it will translate incredibly subtle cues into the meetings that you need to have. You'll run into the people. You'll strike up the conversation with the person in the elevator, and it will be the person that you need to talk to. But everything is around you all the time. Like the world is absolutely full of resources.
Absolutely.
All you have to do is cue your brain into what you're looking for. And it will just start looking for it in the background constantly, just like an algorithm on a computer, just running and running and running, looking for, say, a misspelled word in a word processor. It'll go through and say, hey, that's not in the dictionary. That's a misspelled word, and it'll bring it to your attention. Well, your brain does the exact same things with opportunities in your life and people and relationships and your capacity to generate confidence. It's constantly looking for the thing you tell it to look for based on the story you tell yourself.
Right.
And so if you don't use an affirmation to tell your brain what to look for, whatever it sees, it will point out to you. Whatever it sees that it thinks is relevant. But you've got to tell it what you want it to look for.
Exactly.
It goes back to the line, a couple of weeks ago where we have these lives of design or default. And a life of design is absolutely glorious. And a life of default is just depressing.
Right.
And all you have to do is decide what you want your brain to be looking for in the background as it's running its little cycles, its little computer cycles. Tell it what to look for, and it'll turn that up in your life. It's not complicated. It's not ethereal and frou-frou, and it's just the human condition. It's just how the human brain works. Tell it what you want, it'll start looking for it. When it comes across the thing that might be what you want, it'll bring it to your attention and say, hey, is this the thing you were looking for? And now your conscious mind makes a decision as to whether or not it's useful in your life. And if it is, you meet that person, you shake a hand, you make a friend. If not, you just keep on moving. You go, it's just another Joe.
Well, we certainly don't want that, do we?
We know what you did.
On that note, we're going to wrap this up.
Yes, we will. All right. Well,
I'm going to just say avoid the Joes and dream your life.
And live your dreams.
Bye.
All right. Bye.